With Scarlet and Violet's academy setting, surely when Pokemon finally caught up to Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and started funding their own dual academy, there'd be a lot of talent spawning, a lot of college-educated trainers to try and have a crack at you. Not those self-taught kids who left home at 10, barely learned anything from school up to that point. They still think a Rhombus is that ice fossil Pokemon you get in Kalos. So I've had to jot down every notable character, all the way from Larry to Iono to your mum, to see who's running the streets of Paldea. There's about twice as many trainers here than I was expecting after playing through the game. Academy really gave me a full-on assignment to sort out here. Very immersive, gives you that university experience, at least academically, because you turn up to 2 lectures and you've never seen your teachers before in your life. I didn't even know you had more than like 2 lecturers, let alone like 10 of them that you could fight on the playground. But can you blame me? None of these kids want to be going to school, wearing uniform, lower half PE kit, top half business studies, the first open world Pokemon game, and you're getting homework. Nah. You want to be out there where the action is. My attendance was minuscule. The teachers would have looked at me like they've seen a shiny. They'd more likely expect a response from the register calling out for Golden Magikarp than Senor 1-ups. The academy would have kicked me out quick. By the end of the first semester, I'd have been exiled. Catch me living down Hagrid's hut. And here I am in my wee hut, scheming away at how I would rank the 30 sentient NPCs in Paldea. Time teaches all of the STEM lessons down the academy, because knowing fire weak to water, it's not really an employable skill. It's more of a natural selection type of knowledge. You either get it or you don't. Pretty much when your dreams of being a Pokemon master come crashing down and you've got to play pretend like everyone else and willingly sign up to LinkedIn, she's the teacher you wish you paid more attention to. You'd think, at least, because for a science and maths expert, you'd think mathematically Time should know that rock is an awful type to specialize in. Alright, fair play, the numbers don't lie when it comes to Garganical. And that Iron Defense Body Press combo spells disaster for you at recess, but really, that's a one rock team right there. It's disappointing because I'd want to imagine the teachers would have Pokemon that help educate within their field. Anywhere from Machamp, so kids can count how many fingers he's holding up, to Porygon being made of code. I'm sure Conkelda has himself an engineering B-Tech. Bring him down for a few lectures. And she avoids questions relating to why she quit as a gym leader. No one's asking you that, rock type leader. No one's asking why she got the sack. Even the set 8s know why that career ended quickly. Time is definitely that teacher who gets bullied by the class. Oi, Miss Time, did you have to give a badge to the fire alarm that sparked your team out? A perfectly fine tune-up for the first gym leader is Katie. Players aren't going to be struggling because they found her too easily and they're all unprepared. She even intentionally goes easy on you, knowing that you're fresh out of the academy. Her rematch team isn't bad. For a 5-piece bug team, it's solid enough. She's only down the road from where you can get a hold of ciphers, train up a sizzle, and she'd be making the dropout rate to the academy reach record high numbers if the first thing those freshers are walking into is the clamps. You have this gym leader who looks like she'd make the most banging brownies you could imagine. Kinda baking skills that'd have you floating about like an Electros towards her windowsill. Never said a swear in her life kind of person. And in that bag, you think she's got some delicious triple chocolate chip cookies for you, don't you? But she whips out 2 menaces who look like they do collabs for muggins. Spidops webs you up while Lockix steals your shoes. When you first face Brassius, complete pushover. Your mate's granddad with the greenhouse in his back garden has probably grown eggplants big enough to spark out the first half of his team. I reckon that's why he has to open carry. He knows he's as weak as the paper mache Sunfloras he made for A-level art. Knows all too well that he too is like the Sunflora. So weak that if someone wanted to, they could plant him in a tub of soil and he'd have zero say in the situation. Needs that strap on him just in case. The great equalizer. Knows he probably gets more damage off using Vine Whip himself than any of his team. But that is up until the rematch. The rematch, again, not too bad here. As average as they come, but at least his team would actually do something about it if you try to wedge him into a pot of soil. But when you're looking at the base 3 Pokemon he uses, really the only thing separating this man and Joaquin the Courier is a big escapade finding Sunflora. Guy's a youngster Joey with a barrier to entry. Guy's a route-filling NPC with an obstacle course in the way. Has you gallivanting off on a little Easter egg hunt just to prove you're worth his time. That's right. all 10 seconds of his precious time that you took out of his day to sweep him. Is Kofu that bad? I mean, he's serviceable enough as a gym leader, but willingly using Crabominable alone, that's gonna cap your grade off at a solid D maximum. Only valid reason he'd have for using this sin to humanity is if he's getting groomed up for the kitchen hobs. I faced Kofu way too early. He was my second crack at a gym badge, so it was very satisfying once I was champion, where you, the player, get to make the rounds and grade the gym leaders and make sure they're still worthy of being employed. You could kick them off to the streets if you want. Throw your championship status weight around. I gotta tell you, Kofu, I'm not liking that Crabominable. I'm gonna have to write you up for this one. I just might have to give you the pink slip. But even without my own personal bias, the fact I almost did him in with only one badge when he should be the 4th, that's kind of telling to me. I think the guy just wants to cook. He doesn't see a gym leader team here. He's just looking at next week's specials he's gonna list up for the restaurant. Battling for him is just a convenient way of tenderizing the meat. Gotta slap those Wug Trio around before taking that rock away and strapping him into a bun. Look, I don't think his team is that bad, but I do think it looks like they would be consumed by the Pelipper. Grusha is the suggested last gym leader you take on. I mean, she's only ice. Who's suggesting that? Why is she last? Who's she gonna lead with? Mr. Freeze? I reckon you could make her the 5th badge that you get just from that type alone. She whacks out our last Pokemon like, alright, I think I'll go with the Ortega. Now hold the terrestrializing. Give me something to work with here, please. Gym leader Grusha with a team that vulnerable to our half-boiled kettle. Won't be long now till Grusha's getting mad at students always asking her about a gym leader career while she's serving them up sloppy joes down the cafeteria. Dinner Lady Grusha. I know is an interesting one. Shows they are paying more attention to the internet than you'd expect. It's like if they made Larry as a desk job gym leader because he lost all his money on crypto last year. It's interesting seeing them go with a parody of influencers. I would have loved to have seen them go really all in on that. I want a full-on parody PokeTuber. But I understand, I get it. There's only so much you could really pull off. Obviously, there's a good few names of content creators out there that you couldn't take any inspiration from, seeing as the setting revolves around a school, a place which they're not allowed to be within 200 feet of. I actually rate the lineup she has. Maybe not the best electric type team going, but you gotta say, it's got a lot of charm to it, you know what I mean? Reckon she forces her belly bolt to do mukbang streams and all. I can't see this as a piss take on Pokemon creators specifically. She just screams generic e-girl. And in all fairness to her, Iono's got the metagame for being an e-girl on lockdown. You see, the common joke is that feet pics go for top dollar. Everyone's always joking about the feet. I should sell feet pics. I'd sell my feet online for money too. It's rinsed. Alright, enough of that. The market's way too oversaturated for the foot game. It's too much of a dead meme. You gotta get unique. You gotta find a real niche on the market. You know, where's them rear deltoid fetish guys at? I know it's not quite there, but she's still ahead of the game, monetizing them hands too. You don't get to see them for free. The Pokemon world has that logic of that one Jerry Seinfeld bit where if your parents named you Jeeves, you're kinda just destined to be a butler. In Pokemon, this happens on a pure genetic level. If you're someone who was born with spiky dark red hair, your parents are gonna name you Smoke Paprika, and legally you're getting Torkoal as your starter Pokemon. You've had your career path established as soon as you spawned. You're gonna make your entire personality revolve around spicing things off and kicking off the heat, and you're gonna be the most mid-fire type trainer going. Mela from Team Star is a victim of this. She's okay enough though, at least, but still your base standard fire trainer with an Armor Rouge and a Reveroom to ride about on. Is Geeta the worst trainer here? Perhaps. Does she have the worst team though? Not really. The Paldean chunk is actually good for the most part, but I've no clue how the self-proclaimed top champion manages to let themselves get swept up so easily by a loud crocodile. The team can be salvaged. That's a fixable situation. The skill issue, that's a lost cause. The lack of battle IQ is staggering. Anytime Geeta spent at the academy, it wasn't paying attention to the teachers, it was spent melting crayons down and huffing them, smashing Pokeballs on the ground during recess trying to catch the playground so she could take it home with her. Look, trainers, they should be using Pokemon that they just like. Use your Go-Go, use your Avalugg, whatever. But Glimora first, in King Gambit last, at minimum, bare minimum, just like read their abilities. And maybe she could have been at least a minor problem. Down the academy, she must have been sick the day they taught literally anything but fire weak to water. Top champion knows nothing. Showed up to one lesson. Her complete encyclopedic knowledge of Pokemon caps off at, well, if I buy 10 Pokeballs, I can get a Premier Ball free. Just rocks up in a suit pretending to be important. Pulled a George Costanza and walked into the Pokemon League pretending she had a job there. Hey, she looked the part, so I guess no one questioned it. If you can call yourself the top champion with enough conviction, security won't even check your bags at the door and find out you're a complete fraud. And now everyone knows. Oh, the great La Primera. The second time against Geeta, getting swept by the big spicy crocodile in front of the whole school. The entire city, right in the middle of the high street. La Primera exposed. Dendra is your battle studies teacher, so you'd hope she'd be the hardest teacher going. The one Geeta should have paid more attention to instead of getting her tongue stuck to Avalugg like a frosty lamppost. A fairly spread out team for the field in which she teaches. You've got your powerhouse, your high flyers, your psychological fighters, military combatants, and a pair of Tauros. Really just throwing these kids straight into the deep end there. Dendra must really be a firm believer of true haki is developed against strong opponents. Locks your Pokeballs up like the AI professor and throws you into the Coliseum up against 2 Tauros. Koraidon's not feeling froggy enough to save you this time. Your practical assessment. You have 2 angry Tauros rushing towards you. You have 2 fists. Pens down when I say your 90 minutes begins now. So many fighting types who teach the students. The Hitmons, the Crab, the Grappa-locked. You have creatures that are genetically born as martial art masters straight out of the egg, and you opt for a pair of bulls? Who's Dendra tutoring exactly? Johnny Knoxville? I can see how some of the Team Star characters were bullied, but man, Atticus, apparently he was bullied for liking old-fashioned things? Oh yeah, or maybe it's because you go about telling people you're a ninja. No one's roasting you in science because you collect vinyl records. Alright, it's because you're 15 and play with cardboard nunchucks you made in DT. I'm all for letting people do what they want, just let them be. But that is natural selection within the ecosystem of school at its finest. He's about one notch away from showing off his Joker impression to all the girls. The guy looks like he's undercover in Splatoon trying to hide that he's a human and not some weird little squidman. The fashion designer of Team Star, kind of fit you could only wear publicly if you're famous enough to have 10 bouncers around you. Your man's got that Harry Styles dress sense, kind of fit where they're trying to compensate for having 0 charisma. As a trainer though, if I took the piss out of this man, I wouldn't come to school tomorrow if he told me not to. I did wonder how Atticus could have such a highborn name with such henchman Pokemon, but his rematch team does change that with Toxapex and Trogalgi. Very average team outside of Toxapex, but for what he is, it's a robust enough set there. Oh nah, hey, someone did my man Salvatore dirty with that trim. Went down to Turkish barber golems like, hey boss, hey, give me that Ultra Ball. Mentally, he must be very strong. Somehow hasn't been bullied into joining Team Star with that trim. His team isn't amazing. A bit Pokemon Stadium rental looking. He gathered this up last minute from the lost property section for Sports Day. Nothing too stand out, but nothing too offensive either. But having the great privilege of a mixed team already puts him above a good chunk of the gym leaders. Definitely not the sort of team that you'd need to beat to gain custody of Berserker's younglings though. You'd have to beat as many ex-wives team of highly paid lawyers for that one, or at least you'd have to beat a team of the hardest grog consumers, the Crab, Grappa-locked, Galarian Wheezing. I reckon Rella has a mean bev or two. He does look very jolly, an absolute animal on the fruities. Miriam's team may not be sending you to the hospital. I doubt she'd even want that. I mean, why would she give herself more work patching up all of these dusty students popping in and out of existence? But see, this is the exact kind of team building I want for more characters and Pokemon to have. All of Miriam's Pokemon are based on the subject of medicine and healing. It's not just a bunch of fairy types because Chatsy's pink. Hypnotherapy, acupuncture, aromatherapy, cryotherapy, a defibrillator or leeching, and Toxapex, acupuncture and venom is a good little set to have for the subject of medicine, instead of just having a Blissey and that one from Unova, I forget the name. That's a really interesting set of mons to have down the nurse's office in school. Imagine having to get your jab done by an Electros, or Glalie, the inviting face you see down the nurse's reception.
Yeah, what's that? You scraped your knee? Yeah, sit down over there. Yeah, have a lollipop, there you go.
It's one thing thinking the Elite Four setup was a bit bland in Paldea, but what threw me off was finally being able to go into that cave next to your school, and it wasn't some big dungeon. Yeah, legally, we can't do the Victory Road cave anymore. It's kind of like our Mount Everest. Yeah, a lot of bodies go in and they're never really found again, and that's a lot of 10-year-olds piling up, eh? So we'll just have you fill out a few questions there instead. With how the fan base has reacted, I reckon the majority would have an easier time walking through Victory Road unarmed than make direct eye contact with Riker long enough to get for a sit-down interview. Look, I know everyone loves Riker, but as a man who has zero interest in being stepped on by fictional characters, I can speak objectively here and say the team's lacking a bit. Not impressed. Sheer charisma is holding Riker up, because the team is very much an Elite Four warm-up set. It's half decent, but I'm still not a fan of Pokemon League trainers not having a full team. But I can let this one slide a little bit for not having the full 6-pack. In Clodsire's worth a whole crate of Pokemon, a complete barrel of a specimen. You need to save a whole box in the PC just to get all 500 pounds of him wedged in there. So Team Star's origin is that they were all outcasts, bullied by the NPC students in their little shorts, their little suspenders that would have gotten themselves bullied had they gone to literally any other school. Ortega is an Atticus level of self-inflicted, because he looks like a baller, in all fairness. He's looking pretty fresh. I'd love it if it was socially acceptable to just dress up like this anywhere, but that doesn't fly in school. You need to be self-aware of the risk that you're setting yourself up to be a school-wide meme, a complete inside joke for the rest of your school career. Because if you rocked up to a non-uniform day with this fit, Kane especially, you're asking to be shoved into a locker. Your pockets might be well tailored, but they're gonna be a repellent to lunch money. This is self-inflicted. You got yourself put in Team Star here. You'd never hear the name Ortega again. You'd be Willy Wonka for the rest of your school tenure. But when you look at his team, you clock the Azumarill, the Hatterene, even the Klefki is a pretty solid hand. He's got some of the backup to wear any fit he wants. If you think you're gonna get a cheap pop from the crowd in the classroom, like, oi look, here comes Willy Wanker, the banter better be worth it, because he has the manpower to make you one of his Oompa Loompas. If a fuming Hatterene steps up to you with its Freddy Krueger claws up to your throat, you're gonna dance about, you're gonna do your little rhymes, and you're gonna make some chocolate. I'm gonna have to agree with the criticisms Paldea's Pokemon League has for being a bit too sterilized. Felt like you're walking into a dentist appointment or Kanye West's Organization 13 house. But once you find out Larry is one of the main eventers, it all starts to make sense. This Pokemon League, it's not flashy, no grand arenas, no big crowds, but I have to say, it's very efficient. He must be behind the logistics of it all, like, right, that's it, no nonsense, no high maintenance lava pools, no 50-foot tall boxing rings, and definitely none of them fancy lanterns that set off as you walk up the stage, none of that. Due to budget cuts, we've also had to scrap Victory Road. The investors, they just see it as a bunch of filler anyway. These trainers can prove themselves the old-fashioned way, with a well-ironed shirt, the CV, and a sit-down interview. And there's only going to be one arena for all four of us now. We'll each take turns and fight in the cost-efficient Combat Cube. Larry has the privilege of being a simultaneous gym leader and Elite Four member. He has the privilege of being Pokemon's biggest wagey. Your man's briefcase must be stacked up with divorce papers, got them Ric Flair levels of alimony to pay off if he's a top 5 trainer, and he still isn't earning enough to make a living wage. He's still doing his 9 to 5 dishing up ramen. He might do a gym battle here and there in his smoke break, you know, if a challenger happens to show up, but the normal type team for the gym, the flying type team for the real test. When he's not on the Elite Four payroll, you're getting the normal team. He's not getting paid enough to give you the big boys. Larry, though, he's a fairly mid-tier trainer either way, but there is a distinct enough difference between them. He makes sure not to bring Elite Four level strength to a mid-tier gym, goes from yawning and glaring at you down the gym, but once you step in to the cost-efficient Combat Cube, the top button gets undone. Yeah, none of that yawning. Oi, Flamingo, chop his throat in. The biology teacher, Jacques, is overall one of the more robust trainers here, as no gimmick, no gym leader obligation to force him into using only one type of Pokemon. The man's just a science teacher. If he wants a pet Slowbro and an Arcanine, let the man have them both. Arcanine does seem destined for him though, the one he had no say in the matter of because of what I said earlier. If you're born into the Pokemon world with a trim like that, you get an Arcanine as your first Pokemon. Simple as. I don't care if you wanted Swampert, you'll eat what you're given. Should have been born with 2 Mohawks instead. So his team seems fairly well balanced for an in-game character. Maybe Jacques' team are all biology related, but my brain is too smooth to comprehend it. I'm sure he's getting a lot of mileage teaching students biology through these 6. All very different creatures. It's a wide biological spectrum to have, from a big horse all the way to Swallow. Also tries his hand in general studies. No clue what that means really. Bit of a broad statement. I didn't have it where I'm from. But if it's what I think it is, it could explain some of his choices. Alright, today class, we're going to be going over contraception. That's why I've brought in Slowbro here, to show yous how to wrap it up. Now, if yous don't have access to contraception, I've also brought in Swalot to demonstrate what you could do instead. Your man Giacomo, your boy DJ Vice, Mr. DJ Bad Deeds, or James. Your name's James, really. Alright, fair enough. It's a bit too corny now with the DJ Bad Deeds and all that. You can't expect ruthless teenage students to not take the piss out of you there. Like, come now. I'm sure he's a nice enough guy, but that's such an easy target for it, because I think everyone can relate to that character in school. The, you know, the SoundCloud rapper who's going nowhere. XX Trapezoid Muscle Don Optimus Prime. The guy's all fairly set with his dark team. Actually read the manual a bit and knows to put King Gambit last. And apparently, he's the one canonically making Team Star's theme songs. So if you're telling me he's the chef who cooked up that Team Star battle music, you know what? Fair play. Just drop the Pokemon game. Drop the academy. You're gonna make it. Just drop the Pokemon game. Drop out of school. Go on tour. Have Crocodile be your security and everything. Because honestly, he's making some bangers. No, I think, according to Google at least, he's called Mr. Saguaro, your home economics teacher, and I reckon the most skilled man in the country. You know, obviously, with how much Paldea bums off the sandwiches, this entire piece of land would be starved without your man here. I reckon he's on a bigger salary being a part-time sandwich artist than Larry is working 2 jobs. But it's not just that skill-wise. Imagine turning up to your cooking classes and your teacher's built like Sebum. Anything your man has to say about nutrition, I'd be listening to. I'd be listening to every bit of nutritional advice this man has to offer. This is the kind of geezer you want teaching you how to cook. Obviously, he's cracked the code. Ahead of the game from Iono. Your man's definitely tapping into the rear deltoid market. Got so built they probably had to make a whole new model just to match his physique. He turns up to class and Arvin sprints towards you thinking another Titan Pokemon showed up. Just how many Herba Mystica sandwiches do you have to eat to get forearms bigger than your student's chest? I reckon he trains forearms more than he trains Pokemon. And his team is fairly solid for what he is. I'm just trying to figure out his choices a bit more. Your man has fish, bit of honey, ice, and goo. I can't cook without my goo. You've got the Hatterene there, I assume, to be the head chef of the bunch, because I wouldn't dare say otherwise, as I lack the 19th century submarine gear necessary to survive being shanked by it. And Pachirisu, you know he's there to go under that hat and somehow ratatouille up a meal out of those ingredients. A delectable iced honey fish with goo. Rhyme's team, Mimikyu, Spiritomb, Houndstone, Toxtricity, even though they're a man down, that's fairly weaponized. One of the upper gym leaders easily. No questions from me about that. It's just, I like there being a ghost leader, but doing a rapping gimmick within the confines of Pokemon is just so dead. It's so dead. Game Freak, whatever, whoever's mate, you've gotten a lot of younger brothers roasted by their families for this. Their mental trauma is on your hands. If Team Star were a thing in real life, they'd be bullied into joining it. Like, if I were playing this as a kid, and my older brother, he had his friends over, we were down the house, and I were playing this, they would rip the complete piss out of me. Do you understand the grilling I would be subject to? And the worst part is, it would be fully justified. It'd be fully earned. It'd be Kingdom Hearts 2 all over again. Look, I know Roxas sounds like a Gaylord. Alright, I'm playing it because it's sick. Like 90% of the time, it's sick. I swear. Well, Alright, it's kinda gay. Who cares? Leave me alone. Just let me play my Mickey Mouse game. It's only a minor example compared to like that in the Little Mermaid world. You don't want your dad walking in seeing you playing it. And Game Freak wants kids to keep playing Pokemon as they grow up a bit. But this is the kind of thing that gets them bullied into only playing COD and FIFA for the rest of their lives. So a lot of the teachers really do have mixed teams. I just want to know if there's any logic between Ryfoot's choices as a history teacher. I mean, she really must have been dusting off the history books to remember Luminion exists. Gengar maybe is a ghost of the past. Zoroark could morph into many historical figures, I'm sure. Even Seviper has a generational feud with Zangoose. He'd have many a tale to tell. And Scizor has very large clamps. I think Grumpig got lost trying to find the drama block. Look, unless Grumpig's there to teach me about the war atrocities Paldea has caused, unless he's there to educate me on how many times Paldea has broken the Geneva Conventions, I ain't listening. That Fugazi pogo stick can bounce back into the cafeteria so Mr. Saguaro can spawn us up some baking sarnie. So it's a very top-heavy team, but that weight is more than heavy enough to bring Ryfoot up to the upper bracket of Paldea's trainers, I'd say. Aside from being the most obvious twist reveal since finding out Flint was Brock, the rock-solid Pokemon Trainer's dad, Penny happens to come at you with the complete set Pick-Me-Girl team. I was expecting a new evolution at the end if they were gonna go this far with basing a whole character around it. Maybe a paradox or two be coming our way. Well, it doesn't really matter. If there were an extremely powerful Eevee paradox evolution, she still probably wouldn't use it anyway, showing some poor form right there not having Espeon. But even then, a team full of Eevees, that's still a really solid six-pack by an in-game character's standards. It's arguably the most powerful form of the archetype of 6 Magikarp man. When you're first introduced to Arvin, I figured he was gonna be that annoying rival, the up himself one, the pompous, "Oh, you chose Coco. What council house did you catch that troglodyte in? If you needed spare change, you could have just tried to ask. I have a right mind to call Mr. Saguaro and his big sexy biceps to grab you by the scruff, take you by the academy back doors and say, oh, and stay out." But none of that. He's more grounded than I first thought. It always hits close to home for people, seeing someone with a big chubby dog is their best friend. The guy hasn't got some huge evil scheme to turn the region communist. He's not driving past you every route to remind you that you don't own the Ho convertible. All he wants is his beefy best friend back to full health. And thankfully, the sandwiches cured his Mabastiff's illness. Shame he couldn't get any of that Herba Mystica to his mum, but well. Easy come, easy go. Mabastiff is a sound lad. I would easily take on 5 Titan Pokemon with my bare hands to save a rotund dog. Looks like he'd tell war stories down Berserker's pub. Says he served in World War II, even though he's only like 53 years old. But you don't dare question him about it because you don't quite know what he's capable of. Or he'd just straight up be the dog that's down the local who everyone knows, has his own bowl in the garden with his name on it. No one even knows who owns him. He just spawns in the beer garden every now and then. But everyone loves him. Arvin also has the advantage on this list of having a mixed team. Wasn't much of an advantage having him against a Titan Pokemon about to be swallowed whole by a 30-foot worm, and you're telling me you've had a whole team this entire time? You know, fair enough keeping the Greedent in the PC, but Cloyster, Toedscruel, Garganacl, he could have dealt with these Titans on his own. I don't know why he had to bring me along. I don't think I was even supposed to be able to navigate myself to Alphanada Town as early as I did. I think Koraidon just cheesed its way through that cave with the high walls before I even had the climbing ability. Most of my Pokemon were about level 33, going up against what's meant to be the 7th badge, and it shows. Oh, it shows. My boys were getting tucked in for bed during the pose off. But I'm not just saying Tulip is the strongest gym leader because even her lackeys filled me in. She's actually got her team sorted the most out of the 8. Gallade Gardevoir, physical and special attackers, Espathra, dangerous sweeper, Florges, especially defensive wall, and Farigarath is very tall. Imagine if DLC gave us more rematches where all the trainers have full teams. Let's say within the story of the DLC, Paradox Pokemon are no longer this big hidden government conspiracy. They become accepted and widespread. You know Tulip would definitely be getting herself an Iron Valiant thrown on there as well. Poppy manages to be a trainer that's such a prodigy, she bypasses the age 10 law. She must have been choosing her very first starter Pokemon the same age we all did at like age 4. Definitely an elite level trainer managing to have Corviknight and Tinkerton coexist. Got that unlikely alliance going on. Undefeated combo. The hammer and the nail, commanding some of the most weaponized Pokemon from arguably the most weaponized type. And these are all just toys to her. She's only got 5 Pokemon because 6 would have her being the top champion. And although Geeta might have the mental age of an 8-year-old, she can't have herself being upstaged by a physical 8-year-old. You know, she'd rather wait and be embarrassed by a 10-year-old in the middle of the street instead. Erie is the one Team Star goon who actually sent me packing. And when you look at the lineup, I don't think there's any shame in that. Easy to have been caught off guard with Lucario and Annihilate. But the thing is with this school is dumb, you know? In real schools, you had some kids who get bullied and it was like, now wait till their 17 stone older brother in year 11 hears about this one. At this academy, even the bottom set students would know well enough then to try that with Erie. No one's gonna try bully someone whose 17 stone older brother in year 11 happens to be an Annihilate. Doesn't even stop there. Half of her team looks as though it was tailor-made to rip your face off. Then if your skull somehow remains intact after those 6 hands come at you, you've still got Lucario and Toxicroak to deal with. And then if that's still not enough, she's just gonna have to run you over. Hassel, the Elite Four Kingpin, and runs the local art club, slapping the melted crayons out of Geeta's hands to stop her inhaling them all day, to taking orders from her by night, filling in the slot of regional dragon trainer for Paldea, so he has to be top level in some form. Could use his team to sculpt mountains into a statue of his own head, which he could then reside in, to scheme comically evil plans. The guy's the art teacher, yeah, the art of war. He threatens you with detention, you sit down and listen. No chance I'm risking getting locked in the school dungeon with Haxorus. On a worldwide stage, his dragon team is lacking, but down Paldea, he's about as good as you're gonna get. He takes after Geeta a little bit, because maybe he's not the brightest. Most dragon trainers are quite limited in what they could realistically use because of the region they're from and what's available. But Paldea, fully stocked up. Ground types are about as mythical as dragons. Salamence, Garchomp, Dragapult, Hydreigon. Tatsugiri, the guy has no excuse. I can see why he teaches colouring in and not the STEM courses. But even then, with his Crayola degree, he still manages to be one of the strongest trainers in Paldea. Geeta and her self-given title of top champion, that's pure copium right there, needs to compensate for being done in by a school student council president. The top champion got filled in by someone who organised a charity bake sale that same morning, slapping up the Elite Four with more than enough time to sort out sports day. Nemona is much more worthy of the champion status. It can't go wrong with pseudo-legend Goodra, and you've got the absolute lad, Orthworm himself. I take back Mabustiff being the local pet of Berserkers. It's definitely Orthworm who's the beloved dog of the pub. He takes on Earthquakes, one of the most feared attacks going, with a bib. Down the Orthworm Academy, they sort out charity quake sales. And they just can't get enough of these delicious little natural disasters. Pormots could clean you up if you're not careful. And all 3 of the starter Pokemon are pretty lethal. Then there's the fabled 3-bellied Dunsparce. I think you're just there to prove they actually exist. The champion should have a staple Paldea Mon. Imagine no Lycanroc being forced in there and you had an Armarouge or Ceruledge instead. Either way, those poor creatures being trained under her regime. I would hate to be her Pokemon. They'd be getting worked all year round like they're 12 weeks out on Mr. Olympia. Aside from Tulip's lag-conjuring gardeners and Erie from Team Star, the head teacher Quavo probably gave me the biggest go out of the trainers. Thought Quavo was gonna Charleston his way into getting me expelled. Had one of the strongest teams going this whole time, yet he goes about LARPing as Johnny Bravo, using this 10-year-old kid as his pawn to go out and deal with this gang of degenerates for him. Well, you see, us teachers aren't allowed to hit the kids anymore like the good old days, so I'm gonna have to send you in. You can hit them. And Skeledirge. Skeledirge can hit them too. Like Nemona, any of the potential starters he could end up with are pretty weaponized. That along with Gyarados, Amoonguss, Poltegeist, I can already see why he's running the academy. So seeing him at full power, I understand why he had to scout you out to go hunt down team staff for him. Look, he just wants to give them a good education. No one deserves the last frightening thing they see on this earth to be Quavo spinning towards you like Michael Jackson. Everyone who's played through the game already knows who the strongest trainers are. When you've got a time machine, an unlimited amount of Master Balls, the ability to lock your Pokeballs, are we looking at the inventor of time travel or the inventor of action replay? For an in-game character to have only Paradox Pokemon and the main legendary, no chance the professors aren't the top two. Professor Sada gets Koraidon, Roaring Moon, Fluttermane. Those three alone could pack you in. Professor Churro has Miraidon, Iron Valiant, Bundle, Thorns, Moth. It could go either way, really. Both have 7 Master Balls in hand, 570 base stats minimum, the poster boy of a game, and a leash. Not only by far the most powerful trainers in Paldea, maybe the most ruthless trainers in the whole franchise. Right up there with Getsus, willing to catch a few bodies, age 10, age 50, anyone can get it. If you've got a trainer's license, it's fair game. Throwing out Koraidon and Miraidon, locking access to your Pokeballs. That's cold. The coldest moment in Pokemon. That's not just, oh no gang, looks like we're unable to battle. The implication of this whole situation. Surprised they didn't all hold hands and close their eyes like the end of Toy Story 3. This isn't a whiting out situation. You're not gonna lose a bit of pocket money and wake up at the nearest Poké Center. You're gonna lose your life points and wake up as a dog in Singapore. You're about to watch you and your friends get dragon clawed in half. That sudden realization, the fear in these kids' eyes, could you imagine that? Especially in Arvin's eyes, like, what, mom, nah, don't be a dick, that's not on. Come on, let's use the balls. Imagine this is the first time the main player talks, like, fear not, friends. The Academy has trained us for this very moment. You can press the B button to dodge.